Well, good afternoon. Tuesday, I have to check my notes here. One day's like the other. Tuesday, May the 19th. Welcome back, grade 10 Civics. Hope you had a good holiday weekend. I did sneak in a little lesson to you there yesterday that you're probably just seeing today. Just taking up our questions on who can vote, who can't vote. Some surprises there, I imagine. Maybe some of you beat your parents on the quiz. That would be kind of neat. But you know, these things do change over time. There has been a real move since the early 1980s, which we'll be talking about, towards more democracy, more people voting than used to be allowed to vote. After all, that's what democracy is supposed to be all about, people voting. A reminder, Citizens Handbook Writing Assignment number 3, it's due tomorrow, that's Wednesday, and you are, you're choosing a political party, whichever one you selected, and what you like about it, and demonstrating some real research here. I provided you with the outlines and some of the policies for them, but political parties are pretty good about demonstrating their policies. So make sure you dig in a little bit beyond what I provided you when you provide your response. As I said yesterday, no writing assignment this week. Yay! For those of you who don't like writing, you'll be happy. I'm wondering about, just heard the announcement half an hour ago, school is not coming back in June. I kind of thought that was the case, but I was hoping it'd be nice to get back face to face and in the classroom focused and spending obviously more time on our studies as well. We're limited to how much instruction we can give you in a week, and we understand the reasons why and some of the struggles and challenges at home. Maybe next week we could do a Google Meet or something, some sort of a video interaction. Not a formal lesson, because I realize, some of you can be on, some of you can't. I want to continue to provide lessons to you in this format so you can access it at any time, anywhere, really. Maybe a Google Meet next week, and maybe we can talk about some of the things that we would be talking about. It's always nice in a civics class if there's an election going on or some political issue. In the fall, we had Canada's national election, so our civics students in the fall, we were following the election campaign quite closely, the opinion polls. It's bit of a horse race, who's going to win, and predictions. But now that that's behind us, the Americans are starting to ramp up for their election this fall, where they choose the next president of the United States. Do they keep Donald Trump? Do they take Joe Biden? That could be interesting. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit face to face. I think that would be neat. That'd be fun. So for today's lesson, and I got another one for you on Thursday, since you're not doing a Citizens Handbook, I'll come to you a little more regularly. How do we're talking about, are we a democracy or not? How do we elect people? How exactly do we elect our representatives here in Canada? We learned earlier that our member of parliament is John Nader. Our member of the provincial parliament is Randy Pettipies, but how do they get that job? And what does that mean? And where are they? So we're going to deal with the concept of ridings, also called electoral districts. But the term riding is used more often, so I'm going to use that. In Ottawa, and this is a point that some of you mentioned in your was ancient Athens a real democracy or not? You talked about how we elect our prime minister. That's true, but it's not completely true. When your parents go to the polls this past October, Justin Trudeau's name was not on the ballot. It wasn't. And when we had a provincial election in 2018, Doug Ford's name was not there. We had local representatives on the ballot. This is different, and it's a little confusing, particularly the first time that you vote. Maybe I'll tell you a funny story about my grandmother one time looking for the prime minister's name on her ballot, and it's not there, and I had to, no, Goma, that's not how it works. What we do is we elect a member of parliament, that's John Nader, and he's off to Ottawa. There are exactly 338 members of parliament, no more, no less. Justin Trudeau is one of them. John Nader is one of them, and there are 336 others. What we have done in this country, and it's based on the British model, they do the same, it's based on population and geography and a little mapping mixed in there. What we do is we divide the country of Canada into 338 equal pieces, not in size, but in population. So we approximately 100,000. So our civil servants in Ottawa, these are not politicians, these are government employees, full-time, that's what they do as their job. They take the map of Canada, they've got the populations of all the communities, and they try to divide the country up into 338 pieces with approximately 100,000 people in each piece. Now you do the math, 338 times 100,000, you get 33,800,000 people. That was our population the last time we had a census. A census is when we count the population of the country. We've got another one coming up very soon, and so these numbers are going to shift a little bit, but for now it's 338. But it's not easy to divide that up. My youngest son is a student at the University of Guelph. Guelph has about 100,000 people, so it's easy. There's a riding called Guelph, and they choose a candidate who goes to Ottawa, and that person's in Ottawa, and it's all good. But most communities in Canada don't have 100,000 people. They have more, they have less. Toronto has about 2.5 million. So what do? Can you figure out what they do? They take a map of Toronto, and I'm talking about the GTA, not just downtown, but the suburbs, Scarborough and Etobicoke. It's approximately 2.5 million or 2,500,000 people. They want one member of parliament for every 100,000. If you're good at the math, 2.5 million divided by 100,000, you get 25. So there are 25 members of parliament up in Ottawa representing the city of Toronto. That's more than any other city in the country. It's our biggest city. Now, they don't come from just random neighborhoods in Toronto. What they do is they take a map of Toronto and divide it into 25 little squares with 100,000 in each square. So some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller, some of them are a bit of a funny shape. That's how we do it. But what do you do at what about Stratford? We got about 32,000 people. That's not enough to have a member of parliament, not even close. Perth County, I haven't checked the figures lately. I think we have a little more than 70,000 people in Perth County. That's still not enough. That's not 100,000. So what do? Well, these guys in Ottawa, when they're looking at the map, they're saying, nope, Perth County doesn't get one. They're going to have to team up with somebody else to get up to 100,000. And it has changed from time to time as populations shift. At the moment, our riding is called Perth-Wellington because we're about 70,000 people in Perth County. Northern Wellington County, if you can think of Arthur, Mount Forest, up that way, north of Millbank, north of Highway 85, 86, that's into Wellington County, just a bit of Wellington County. There's about 20, 30,000 people there. You put those two together, you get about 100,000. It's approximate. It doesn't have to be precise. So John Nader, our representative, represents all of Perth County, but also Northern Wellington County. So that's how it works, 100,000 each. And we have an election, and the members of parliament go off to Ottawa. Whichever political party elects or chooses or sends to Ottawa the most members of parliament wins. And so Justin Trudeau and the Liberals elected more members of parliament than anyone else in the last election, 157. Nobody else had that many. And so he, as the leader of that party, he's our prime minister. The other parties got less. Now, there's a concept of majority government and minority government. You might need to do a little research, but let me just explain briefly. And there is a little attachment underneath here where I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of work, fill in some charts, some definitions. 338 members of parliament. To have a majority of that, if you do the quick math, 338 divided by 2 is 169. That's half, so one more is 170. Now, all the politicians in Ottawa know the importance of the number 170. That gives you a majority. Mr. Trudeau came short, 157. So he has what we call a minority government, which means if he wants to pass some laws, you've been hearing about all this money he's been sending out during the pandemic, checks for students, checks for business people, checks for people laid off. He and the Liberals can't do this by themselves. They have to work with the other parties because they don't have 170 members to get a majority vote each time they want to do this. So they have to team up with some of the other parties. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in our next lesson. But in the previous election, back in 2015, when Trudeau first won, he had over 170 members. So he had a majority of the members of Parliament. So we call that a majority government, which means in his first term, he could do whatever he wanted, pretty much, as long as he didn't break the law. So when he wanted to change the marijuana laws, he did not need to ask the NDP, members of Parliament, or the Conservatives, or anyone else what they thought. Hey, I've got enough members here on my side that we can pass this vote because we're all going to vote for it. He can't do that anymore with a minority government. If he wants to pass something, he's got to team up with some of these other parties. So what I'm going to ask you to do, I realize this is a little confusing. I've got a chart attached here, and after you do a little Google search, I've done the first one for you. We're looking at both Canada, federal elections, and Ontario, provincial elections, the two most recent. We're going to look at how many members were elected in each, and you're going to determine, was it a majority government or a minority government, and a definition, of course, what exactly that means. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as time goes by. All right? So sorry, we're not coming back into the classroom in June. I regret that. I would have enjoyed that, and I'm sure many of you would have too. But maybe we can start doing a little online stuff next week, Google Meets or something. I'll send out an invitation. But for now, finish that Citizens Handbook. You don't have a new one to start on, so get this one done on which political party you like the best. Then work on the work that I have attached to this. And on Thursday morning is our time slot. I'm going to come back to you again since we don't have a Citizens Handbook assignment. So I'm going to throw in another lesson here. So we up our content a little bit. We will be having a test sometime in June. We have not been told, unless it just came out minutes ago and I haven't seen it, we're operating under the assumption that there's going to be an exam or culminating project in all of your courses, just like there always is. But we don't know that for sure. Maybe we'll know more by our next gathering. But we will have a test in June one way or another. Alrighty? You have questions, you have concerns, you know where to find me. Fire me off an email. Some of you fire off quite a few. That's great. I will get back to you. Take care.